The CBC's Chris Reyes joins me now from New York. So a frank, constructive discussion and then some frank words. I mean, but the president has said it. But interesting to hear the foreign minister use that word conquer. That it is clear that the president of the United States in the year 2026 wants to conquer Greenland.
Mm-hmm. And yet what we heard there was quite a diplomatic and measured press conference. I mean, that was the first thing that stood out to me. I think it's easy to lose sight of the fact that we've normalized this environment where high-stakes conversations happen on social media, where things often become fragmented, turn toxic, escalate. And it was very interesting to hear there from Denmark's foreign minister that their big goal with this meeting was to have a face-to-face, human-to-human meeting, that after weeks of debates happening on social media, this was the first time that happened, that they wanted to have a conversation and a dialogue that had nuances in it. And he kept repeating that throughout the press conference. And that's what really stood out to me. I mean, this is the kind of press conference that you would get here at the United Nations. It was diplomatic and it was measured. Let's talk about some of the accomplishments that the Danish foreign minister listed there in this 2-hour meeting. And just as a bit of a background, this meeting was requested by Lars Rasmussen with his counterpart, so Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And very quickly, the stakes got higher as Vice President J.D. Vance got involved and offered to host it at the White House. And as you saw there, the Danish foreign minister was joined by Greenland's foreign minister as well. So very quickly, this became a very high stakes meeting, given the tensions leading up to the meeting, and that is this ratcheted up rhetoric that you were talking about that President Trump has been conducting in social media, in scrums with the press, saying that the U.S. wants to acquire Greenland through any means necessary, and that this was something that he was not going to accept if it didn't happen. So that was the backdrop of this conversation. So I think there was a lot of interest in what would come out of this. And what we heard from the Danish foreign minister is that they reached some kind of common understanding. That was surprising for me to hear, that they agreed to disagree, that they agreed to continue to talk, and that they have now decided to form a high-level working group to continue to discuss this issue. And then he was asked about Trump's approach. Again, I describe that press conference as quite diplomatic and measured, which I think is fair to say the diametric opposite of President Trump's style, which is much more brash, however you want to describe it. And he was asked about President Trump's approach, and the Danish foreign minister's answer also stood out to me, because he said that he has known President Trump going back to his time as Prime Minister of Denmark, and that he knows his approach. And that while he doesn't agree with President Trump's style, he said there's always a bit of truth in what he says, that he shares his concern over security in the Arctic, and that he wants to be able to meet some of the president's demands. And this is where he gets quite diplomatic, Andrew, because this is where he says that they want to accommodate the request of this president, who is president of a country that they continued to repeat in that press conference as not just friends and allies, but long-term friends and allies. He kept, referring to the history between America and the U.S.
225
but that they
years.
Wanted to meet. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And not only that, there's that agreement in 1951 that already allows the U.S. to move pretty freely and build militarily in Greenland. So he referred to that as well. But the foreign minister saying that the U.S. has to respect our red lines. And we've heard from the top leaders of Denmark and Greenland that Greenland's not for sale, that given the choice, Greenland would stay with Denmark. And so he didn't say those words right out in that press conference, but he did keep repeating this red line, that the U.S. has to respect those red lines, at the same time that they will make this effort to to accommodate what President Trump is asking for, to talk about the security in the Arctic. We've heard from President Trump that he wants to acquire Greenland because it's a matter of national security. He has talked about China and Russia encroaching into that territory, and that is not good for the U.S. or any other country in the NATO alliance and in North America. So again, I guess the two words to really describe that press conference is that it was diplomatic and measured, and that they will continue to talk, which I think might surprise some, given the tensions that is surrounding this issue. But I think for a lot of people who are watching global affairs right now with a lot of anxiety, I think this tone would definitely be welcomed.
And then just finally on that, Chris, because you mentioned the Russian and Chinese encroachment, we did hear some pushback. The foreign minister saying that he wanted to kind of push back against this false narrative. And I think he used the example, he said there hasn't been a Chinese warship in the waters off Greenland for 10 years. So because this has been a narrative that has been pushed by Donald Trump, right?
Exactly. And I don't think any news outlet would claim to say that they've interviewed every citizen in Greenland. 56,000 is the population there. But there has been a lot of stories coming out of Greenland and talking to just everyday Greenlanders. And what you're hearing is that they're not living this reality that President Trump is describing, this idea that Chinese and Russian ships are circling that island. They're not seeing that, and they're living in that island on a day-to-day basis. And this urgency to meet this security is just not something that they see with their own eyes or that they feel according to how President Trump is describing it. But what some analysts are saying is that what Greenland has is something that the U.S. wants very badly, which is those critical minerals. And if you think about what's going to be fueling an AI digital future, it will be critical minerals, and there's certainly a lot of it in Greenland, and that is one of the strategic reasons why President Trump is doing this, according to some analysts.
Chris, thank you. The CBC's Chris Reyes, live in New York.